I'm Sharon Peel Kennedy, and today I'm going to make you a nice small pot of chowder. I've got about 1.5 dozen of clams, the clam juice, some diced up onion. I'm going to use 6 small potatoes, and I'm going to put some salt pork into my clam chowder. So I'm going to show you the proper way to do the salt pork. You want to come and make some nice thin slices. Now, a real little trick for doing this is to put your piece of salt pork into your freezer for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half ahead of time, so that it can get a little firmer for you. That's about enough because I only have 1.5 dozen clams. And you want to cut through the rind part. This is the hard part. You put that down and just make like a little grid. Then you can take and cut that part off because you're just making little meat bits to flavor your chowder and kind of, make it nice and tender. So you come in here and you give it one more slice down here. Take this rind part off. You turn around, you make little teeny cross bits, and that's where you get your nice little crisp meat bits. You can call them all kind of things, but it's just the flavor of the chowder. And you're going to take and put this on a low flame, and you're going to cook it very slow. You're not going to try to hurry up and brown it. You want it to, it's called render. You're going to want it to just cook down and do a real slow render down to where it's crispy pieces, and that's where you get your the oil from for making your chowder nice and tender. Okay, we've got that chopped up in pieces, and you see they're nice little pieces here. All right, I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna turn my stove on. Got my salt pork pieces diced up. I'm gonna put them into my little saucepan, and I like to put this piece in there because that just adds more extra rendering. All right, we're gonna let that cook low and slow. It's gonna render up. I'm gonna go back over here. I'm gonna spread them around. Now set them, forget them, and don't worry about it for a little while. I've got some small red potatoes here. We're gonna dice them up kind of small so they'll not take so long to cook. When you cook them this small, they take about 15, maybe 20 minutes to cook. And just make a little grid in them. You can make your potatoes smaller if you want, but where I'm trying to stretch that 1.5 dozen of clams, we're going to stretch it with potatoes. That's an old secret. If you got more company coming in, then you just add another potato. I'm going to go over here, check onto my salt porks, because I hear them get a little feisty over here. You see they're kind of cooking down. They look kind of dry, but as this fat renders down, I'm going to turn it down a little bit more. Turn this over. Like I say, it takes a while. You got to work with it. It's a chowder. It's not a perfect science. But this is the part of rendering it down. All right. Finish chopping up the potatoes. I already did my onions already. I didn't want y'all to see me crying when I'm cooking. Onions have a thing of doing that for me. So this chowder, you're not going to need to add any salt to it because your clams, of course, are going to be plenty salty. And let's see. We're going to let this be it. We don't need all those potatoes after all. It's kind of, you just kind of eye it. But that looks like plenty potatoes for us here. And for us, just a little teeny supper. Alright. And after I take and put the potatoes, I'm going to take and put the potatoes into that pot after I take the brown bits off. And we're going to let them cook for just a few minutes. Then I'm going to take these clams, I'm going to put them into this plate, and I'm going to show you how you chop them up. You could put them in a food processor, but that would mash them up too much. This is the old authentic way that I learned from my father, passed down to him, of getting a very nice chop on your clams without making mush out of them. All right, we need to come over here and check onto our little bits here. See, they're browning up. Like I say, it takes a long while to do it, but you know, once you get it going, it's about 15 minutes before the potatoes are done. All right, so we come back over here. I'm gonna take and put this piece of salt pork away. Now I'm gonna come here. I'm gonna stir these up, and they look just about right. I've added just a drop or two of plain vegetable oil to this because my salt pork was a little on the lean side. So this is about crispy like you want them, just nice and toasted up, because you're going to sprinkle them into your chowder towards the end of the time. Alright, so I got a little cup here. By the way, Sea Grant is a very wonderful advocate for fresh local seafood along the North Carolina coast. They do many things in our communities to educate people about our ecosystems, our fish and our sounds, our marshes. They're very instrumental in our coastal communities, promoting healthy sounds and water and sustainable seafood. All right, now we're going to do a thing. We're going to put the potatoes into here. I'm going to let them just kind of sit in here a few minutes. Let them cook around. Put your onion into here. Alright, let that kind of cook down a little bit. So we're 1, 2 here. Put this here. Now I'm going to show you the way I was taught by my father to chop up a clam for your chowders. This here is a 12.5 clams. This is the broth from opening the clams, and as you'll see, I've put them kind of in a slant bowl, so any sediment that could have been into the clams, such as any sand or anything on the clams, will settle to the bottom, and that'll help keep your chowder from being gritty. Alright, so we're going to come here and bring my clams here. I use a pie plate, a regular dinner fork, and a regular old steak knife. It works trusty. Like I say, you can put them in a blender if you want, but that's going to end up making them very mushy, and you won't get the nice little chew of the clam. Let me just reach in here and get these out of here. Nothing fancy about it. Alright, you just put them here. I'm going to set this right here. And you do it just chop style. You just come in here and just slowly hold on to them and chop them. You can do them as fine as you want them, but remember, you want to get them nice and chopped up because they're going to shrink up. And if you got a lot of people, chop them even smaller because that'll stretch them. But this is plenty. This will probably be enough for a bowl of chowder and a leftover, depending on size of the containers that you serve it in. It'll be a nice healthy bowl of chowder for 2 people with some nice fried up corn cakes. And I'll show you my fried up corn cakes and explain how I did them just a little bit. Alright, that's about the chop you want on them. You can see they're all kind of chopped up. If you see some obvious big pieces, go ahead and chop them up. But you don't want them much smaller than this, because then you're not going to have much texture. Some people might not like the texture, so they might like them full. You like them just like that. That's all you got to do. So I'm going to come over here, stir up these potatoes a little bit. Now remember, you don't want to put any salt in this because your clams and the broth have all the salt you could possibly want. So we're gonna let that cook up still a few more minutes here. Before I started all this, I've made myself some corn cakes to go with this chowder. I used the Abbott's Hush Puppy Mix without onions, and it's got low sugar so that it's not real sweet. The instructions are you use about a 2/3 cup of water and for Hush Puppies. But I like to make them a little thinner cakes, so I add just a little bit more water to that. And I did not use water with this particular batch. I actually used a small can of whole corn and let the corn juice be my water. And you can see they're nice, healthy corn cakes. Very simple. See, they're nice, healthy corn cakes right there. All right, so now we can stir this up a little bit more. I believe we got some chowder going on here. I didn't use a lot of onion because onion can sometimes overpower stuff. Most people just want the plain old potatoes and clams. And if you'll notice, I said this is a Hatteras style clam chowder. So therefore, it's just going to be clam broth, about maybe a half a cup of water to break some of the salt, and the clams, potatoes and onions. Our chowder is traditionally a clear broth. There's a New England clam chowder and there's a Manhattan clam chowder. We do this here. This has just been a traditional chowder my whole life. And I like it. Some people prefer the cream in theirs or the tomato-based chowders. Okay, so we've got this going pretty good here. We can pepper up the onions a little bit and the potatoes and get them flavored up good. And that'll pass on to the clams. Some people like a lot of pepper into their clam chowder. It don't matter. It's to your preference how you want to do this. Now I'm gonna come here and get these clams that I've chopped up. Add them to my broth. And I'm gonna pour the top part of this clam broth in here. Just the top part. You can see all that, call it sludge, in the bottom of it. And see, that's just enough to come right over top of them clams. And that's going to cook down. About the time that these potatoes cook down, see, that's the stuff you don't want in it. But don't let this dishearten you. This is just part of it. And to this, I'm going to add about a half a cup of water. I don't want to dilute any of that wonderful clam flavor. All right, I'm going to feel as if I want to add just a little bit more pepper to it. Just give it a stir. Get all that goodness off, because then we'll take and put the lid on it. Set it for about 15-20 minutes. Let it come to a boil before you set it. Now I'm just putting the lid on it so it can go ahead and be brought up to temperature. But as soon as it starts boiling a little, you set your timer for about 15-20. It might be 25 minutes, but usually a potato takes about 15-20 minutes diced up this small. And we'll come back to cooking this in a little bit. All right, I'm gonna come over here and check, see how our chowder's coming along here. Oh, look at that, nice boil to it. So now we're gonna stir just a little bit. You can see everything's all settling in real good. Time them potatoes are nice and tender. It's gonna be mighty delicious. I'm gonna take and put it on the back burner here. That's a little bit more of a slow cooking burner. You set your timer for 15 minutes. You'll come back and check it. You'll have some nice, delicious chowder. Well, we're gonna go over here and see how our 15 minutes has done for us. Actually about 18. And look how nice and tender these are. You can put them in the lid of your pot, and when your spoon goes through them nice and tender like that, you have some clam chowder. See? Nice proportion there. Nice ratio there. All right. So we'll turn these off. Come over here to our little chowder pot. I like to ladle my chowder out because sometimes there might be just a little bit of grit left. I mean, these are clams, they're wild caught. Better than anything you'll buy out of a jar or a can. They're the authentic flavor of North Carolina seafood, North Carolina clams. And all these potatoes, as they've been cooking, they've been soaking up that wonderful flavor. Now is when you want to take and put your salt bits in. Pour that juice right over top. And you're going to stop. I'll show you here. Just be real gentle. Because I'm just doing a little extra of what's called purging. Or see, I'm going to save that part from going in there. And that's a pretty much guarantee that you'll have a nice clam chowder that doesn't have a whole lot of grit pieces in it. Then to garnish it, you take and put your little green onions around, chopped up spring onions. And if you want this to sit a little bit before you cook it, you can take and put your little lid onto it, and that'll marry it down real nice to where it has a real nice flavor, because it's mighty hot right now. And I like to serve it up with some nice fried corn cakes, as I showed you earlier, that I made with this Abbott's. I highly recommend this. This is a wonderful cornmeal, a wonderful breader. It's a wonderful flour. It's got all kind of different products. And aside of making hush puppies, they make the best fried corn cakes, and that's a southern favorite. And I've diced up some cucumbers with a little onion, a little vinegar, a little bit of water, and let them sit for a few hours. And this right here is a true, authentic Hatteras style clam chowder.